This is AS level psychology, and this is going to be about memory. So, my name is Victoria Awe, and I made this PowerPoint to help students from a student. And I thought that, and I'm doing it based on a specification that I've gotten off the AQA website. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. This is also the first video I've ever made as well. Next slide. Okay. So as I said, I've done this over the specification, and the first one, this is 3.1.2. You guys can find this. I'll put the link inside the description as well if you guys want to get the full specification on the website, because I realize some people don't know how to get it. So to start off this multi-store model of memory, we're going to be looking at the key terms that come with it. First things first, what is memory? Memory is the process by which we retain information from events that have happened in the past. This past doesn't have to be 2 or 3 years ago. It could also be the intermediate past, which is maybe like a few minutes ago. As you're living here, whatever's happened before is still the past. Now, what makes up memory? We have sensory register, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Components of memory. These are kind of like the characteristics that come with each store that's been made up, that's been said in what makes up memory. So first we have coding. This is the way information is stored into our brain. Then we have capacity of memory. This is how much information we can store. Then you also have duration, which is how long the information will last in the memory or store. So the first store, as seen in the earlier slide, is sensory register. The clue is in the name. So this is the part of the memory that takes information from your senses. These are your sight, touch, hearing, taste, and smell. So the coding that has been seen on the table is, as I said before, senses. The capacity is high, so you can store in a lot of information, but the duration though is half of a second, so it doesn't really last for a long time. Next slide. Okay, so now we have short-term memory. This is the second state in the multi-store model of memory, and it usually lasts for 15 to 30 seconds. And this is basically a state where we can only remember a little information for a small period of time. The coding as seen is acoustic, so that is sound. The duration is 15 to 30 seconds, and the capacity is 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information. The 7 number was proposed by Miller in 1962. I would recommend remembering that name, by the way. And he thought that short-term memory could hold 7 plus or minus 2 items, which is basically 5 or 9 pieces of information, because he had a certain number of slots in which the items could be stored. Although Miller didn't specify the amount of information, so this is the amount of the pieces of information we can store into our brain. We do know that when we chunk information together, it makes it easier for us to store it in our memory, store it in the store, basically. Now the last one is long-term memory. This is a stage where our brain indefinitely stores information which is not always in our awareness, but when need to be can be recalled. So this is like maybe a test that you had earlier. You're not always going to be aware that you had a test, I don't know, last July, but if someone asks you, oh, when the last time you had a test, you recall it, oh, last time I had a test was from July. So it's like, it's not always in your awareness, but when you think about it, you can recall it for people. The coding for it is semantically. Semantically is basically when we look at the meanings of the words. So stuff gets stored into the long-term memory by the meanings and also rehearsal. And the capacity for it is high, it's unlimited. And the duration is for a lifetime. That's the stuff that gets stored into a long-term memory can be there for a long time. Guys, just a tip for if you want to pass your exams, get it into your long-term memory. Okay, and that is it. Okay, so we have the multi-store model of memory by Atkinson and Schifrin, 1968. I would recommend learning that name as well. Next. So the pictures come up now on the board. So Atkinson and Schifrin suggested that in a linear way, information is passed through the different stages. So the information, sensory, attention, short term. If we rehearse it, it goes to long term, and obviously if we want to retrieve it back to short term, recall comes out from there. So from it as well, from short-term memory, if the information passes through it, if the information is not seen as important, then we lose it. But if the information is seen as important, then it goes into the long-term memory. This is basically what the model is saying. And then we can remember the information forever, as the diagram suggests. Sometimes I believe from what my teacher said that you don't really need to know the diagram, but in case like you're unsure, drawing the diagram could get you some extra points on the exam if you ever like forget, you know what I mean, what to say. Is it done? Oh, might as well move to evaluation now. So we're now going to look at the evaluation of the multi-store model of memory. The first evaluation is a strength. I tried to make it even, so when you guys write this in an exam paper, you know at least two from each. And the first thing is the role of rehearsal is evident. When we rehearse in real life, we tend to remember situations more and the information we are learning for. So, for example, a dance performance that's coming that you may be rehearsing for. So the more time you learn the dance and you practice the moves, the less you're likely to stumble in the actual performance. This is actually shown, which is proven by the multi-store model of memory. The next is a weakness. This is oversimplification. Research suggests that there is more than one type of long-term store, and there's more than one type of short-term store. So another type of short-term store was found with an amnesia patient that was called KF, K.F. And they found that he didn't recall the words when they were read out to him, but when he read the words to himself, he recalled it a lot more better than before. So if you guys look at my earlier PowerPoint, I said that short-term memory, the coding for is acoustically, but here this is showing that you can also store short-term memory visually as well. So multi-store model of memory doesn't really go into this. Then there is also a variation in how the long-term memory can be stored. So maintenance rehearsal is what we really get from the multi-store model of memory, which is when we learn stuff, we repeat it and practice it to try and remember it. But really, you can also do this through elaborate rehearsal, which is when we link new things that we're learning to knowledge we already know. This shows that there's a lot of details missed out by the multi-store model of memory, so it's a weakness. Next, we have supporting research evidence. So, Badly found that when we mix up words, it tends to be from short-term memory, but when we mix up meanings, it tends to be from long-term memory. This proves the model right as it shows the difference with short-term memory and long-term memory, since the models the multi-store model separates them into two different stores. It also relates to their coding semantically and acoustically. The next weakness is artificial materials. Okay, so most of these experiments that show multi-store model of memory are lab experiments that focus on words, letters, and consonant syllables. So they do not really relate to they're not really relate to real life, where we have things like people's faces and situations we're in that help us store memory. So this basically makes the multi-store model of memory lack ecological validity. Sorry, I can't pronounce the validity. And it also means it's not generalizable to people, because it's really in situations that people will not always been going through. These type of situations that they've done will most likely happen in educational situations, since we always have to read, but like when it comes to general life, it's not as evident. So this is my last part of the video. Thank you for listening. I believe the next part will be coming out soon. Okay, guys, this is my first video, and this video is finished now. So just to check whether we've completed the specification, the multi-store model memory, check. Sensory register, check. Short-term memory, check. Long-term memory, check. Features of each store, coding, capacity, and duration. And you also have the evaluation now, in case you need to answer any exam questions. So bye guys, see you till next video. See ya.